Good evening, good morning, everyone. My name is Mukesh. I carry around 20 years of experience in information security. I have multiple certifications and I'm currently working full time as a director information security in one of the US based MNCs. Obviously, I have spent some time on the weekends delivering some of the sessions that help me maintain my level of knowledge as well. So the CISM course is more from the management perspective, right? So just like you have CISSP and other courses, every information security certification has their own importance. CISM has its own importance. So CISM more focuses from the management perspective where you should have knowledge, high level of knowledge of each and every area that is four domains in CISM. One first is the information security governance that covers 24% of the total course. Domain two is information risk management that is 30% that covers the CISM review manual. Domain three talks about how you develop the information security program, right? That covers around 27%, and information security incident management, that is the domain four, that covers 19%. So the percentage provided here doesn't mean that you have to cover less content in any of the domains, right? So you have to pay equal attention to each and every aspect of all the four domains. So first domain, as we talk about information security governance, it talks about the strategy, right? How you maintain an information security governance framework, how you define the things, how you strategize the thing from the management perspective. If you are going for the exam just for informational purpose, it covers approximately 36 questions from this domain. These are some of the objectives that are mapped to the first domain, which covers the purpose of information security governance. We would be covering each and every topic, right? The purpose of information security strategy, objectives, how you create the policies, what are the considerations that you have to take while developing the information security policies, standards, procedures, guidelines. What is the business case, how you present the business case to the management, what all aspects should be covered under the business case, because management is mostly concerned with knowing the business, right? They should know the cost and benefit analysis when it comes to business case. Define governance metrics required selection and creation. So what metrics means to the management, right? How your information security program is performing. You can only provide the information by the help of metrics. There are around 8 to 9 task statements that are mapped to domain one. So I'm not going into the detail of each and every task statement. This is only for informational purpose. So coming to the domain one, so introduction helps us understand what all things are covered in the complete domain. Governance, obviously governance is very important to run the organization. It covers all the rules, all the policies and procedures that needs to be drafted or created for the information security, right? So the first step that is normally the management considers is the information security governance, because information security governance is always in the form of top down model. It's the senior management who determines what's the outcome of the information security program, right? They have to develop the objectives, they have to develop the desired state, what why you want the information security program, right? If you don't know your objectives, what you want to achieve, or you don't know what is the desired state, what you want to achieve from the information security program, then the information security program would be a failure for the organization. So in order to make it a success, obviously you should know what is the desired state, where you want to be. The information security determines what is the gap, right? By doing the gap analysis, you can make use of number of standards, you can make use of number of tools to perform the gap analysis. Now gap analysis is something, that gap between the current state and the desired state, where you are at the moment and where you want to be after some after some duration or some moment, right? Next is to develop a roadmap. Roadmap is a step-by-step phases that you draft or that you consider to reach the desired state. That is called a roadmap, right? What you want to do, you draft the security policies. Your security policies are based on the requirements, information security requirements, or the business requirements, right? We will talk more about the business case. Business case is something that you want to convince the management about investing in information security. To invest in information security, you have to, as an information security manager, you have to develop a business case that will focus on what you want to achieve, why you want to achieve, what would be the benefit out of the investment in information security, how the management will get the benefit, what benefit the organization will have in overall. Everything is covered in a business case, because management does not understand technology. They understand the profitability, the money, because they are doing the business, right? Information security governance overview. An overview tells about what is information, right? What information is actually anything usable data that has some purpose or meaning is called the information. And why we are securing the information, because our information is very important to us. We don't want our information to be in unauthorized people or bad people who can misuse the information. That is why we are making each and every effort to secure the information. We are following practices, we are following the standards, we are following the regulations. The ultimate objective of information security is to secure the information. And it should always, information security governance should always be top down, right? Ultimately your senior management, board of directors are accountable for the information security governance. Remember that information security is a business driven activity, right? Business will drive the information security. Information security will not drive the business. So each of your information security objectives are based on your business goals and objectives. They are mapped to business goals and objectives. So when we are talking about what is the importance of information security governance, so very important, it helps you in your meeting your regulatory requirements, right? When you implement information security in your organization, there might be n number of requirements. Now requirements can be meeting the standards, meeting some regulatory requirements, for example your GDPR, right? Meeting some standards for payment, for like PCI DSS, or your organization is ISO 27001 certified and you have to be in compliance with all the controls according to the statement of applicability. So these are some of the requirements that that an organization have in standard, right? Plus it will also create some trust in customer relationship. When you go to the customer, you bid for some business, you provide some information about your organization, how you capture the information, how you process the information, and how you protect the information. It always creates a sense of trust in a customer if they know that you already follow the standards, if you already have the good information security model in place for your organization. Right? That means prudent management understand that it provides a series of significant benefits, that is including all the things that I have told you. Compliance is equally important, right? What is compliance? You have GDPR in scope and you have to comply with your GDPR because it's a regulatory requirement, right? And in order to fulfill all the requirements that are in GDPR, you implement some n number of controls. Now, once you implement those controls, right, you have to have a mechanism in place to ensure that controls are effective from time, and it would be an ongoing process to check on the basis of your internal audits or the self assessment to ensure the compliance in place for those requirements. What are the outcomes of information security governance, right? So these are some of the outcomes, basic outcomes that an information security governance has. Strategic alignment. Your information security, as I told you earlier also, your information security will always be aligned with your business goals and objectives. That is strategic alignment. Risk management, every organization should have a risk management program in place, right, in order to identify or diagnose the risks on in a timely manner, and then mitigate the risk and bring the risk level to the acceptable level if it is an acceptable level. Now, what is the risk? What is risk management? What is acceptable level? How you mitigate the risk? We will talk more about this in domain 2. Domain 2 is completely dedicated to risk management and risk assessment. What is value delivery? Value delivery means, just as I told you before, when you do it some investment in information security. I don't remember anything information security that doesn't require an investment, right? And why you do the investment? To support the business objectives. What are business objectives? Business objective is something that you want to achieve in order to gain benefit from the business you are running, right? That is the business objective. What is resource optimization? You, whatever resources you have in the in terms of technology, in terms of people, in terms of processes, you should optimize it to the full potential. Using information security knowledge and infrastructure efficiently and effectively is resource optimization. Now, how your information security processes, whatever you have implemented or you would be implementing, how they are performing, that will come under performance management. Assurance process integration means integrating all relevant assurance factors to ensure that processes operate as intended from end to end. Assurance process integration means you have a lot of verticals in your organization, right? Information security is not something that is a silo for the information security department. You have to work with each and every business unit or each and every department that comes under the scope for information security. It can be your HR, it can be your finance, it can be your technical IT staff, right? It can be your physical security, anything that requires protection of information, and or any of the departments that has some or the other information security requirement will come under assurance process integration. So how you integrate other processes with your information security program, that all things are covered under assurance process integration. How you will make information security governance effective? Very important, and this is a repetitive topic everywhere. You have been asked how you ensure the effectiveness of information security governance program. The responsibility always lies with the board of directors and senior management, right? Now there are a lot of requirements for information security governance and or information security that varies from organization to organization, but the standard are your legal and regulatory requirements that are mandatory and that exercise due care. Why they exercise due care? Because if you don't comply with legal and regulatory requirements, obviously there would be some penalties or fines, and the monetary loss will always occur. Determining risk capacity and acceptable risk. What is risk capacity and what is acceptable risk? Risk capacity is something, for example, you invest in share market, right? You have 100 rupees, that is your risk capacity, but you want to invest till your appetite. I am okay to take the risk of rupees 50, that is my risk appetite. I cannot take it ahead of it, that is my risk appetite. Now there is a risk threshold also. For example, if the risk if I have a loss of 20 rupees more, for example, from 50 to 70, that is your risk threshold. You cannot go above that. Subject to the absolute maximum imposed by the risk capacity, the owners or board of directors of an organization set the risk appetite of the for the organization. So for every organization, the risk appetite is determined. This is normally determined by the enterprise risk management team. They decide the risk appetite for the organization at the organization level. What is acceptable and unacceptable risk? We are going to discuss about acceptable and acceptable risk in coming slides and in domain 2, that is completely dedicated to risk management. So acceptable risk is where it is okay to accept something, right? It is okay. For example, I can bear a loss of 50 rupees out of 100. That is my acceptable risk. I cannot bear the loss of 80 rupees out of my investment. That is my unacceptable risk. So I have to implement some controls, right, to bring that unacceptable risk to acceptable risk. How you do it? You have to do the risk assessment. After doing the risk assessment, you do the risk analysis, you do the calculations, you determine the likelihood, you determine the impact, then you will get what is the acceptable risk and unacceptable risk. And for the unacceptable risk, you have to do the risk treatment. Now, risk treatment is something you implement additional controls in order to mitigate the unacceptable risk. Governance, risk management, and compliance. Now, what is this? You might have heard about GRC function in each and every organization. What is governance? What is risk management? What is compliance? Governance, as I told you before, is always a top-down activity. That is the responsibility of senior management and board of directors. They decide the information security strategy, governance, and on the basis of governance, you create the strategy to build the information security program. Right? That is covered under governance. Now, risk management is very important function. That is an enterprise function in each and every organization, and it focuses on highlighting the risk, on identifying the risks in a timely manner, so that those risks can be mitigated to the acceptable level. Compliance is a process that records and monitors the policies. You have the policies, you have some requirements where you have to ensure the compliance with the regulatory requirements, with the policies that you have built, right? So you have the compliance function within your organization that will always focus on the compliance of whatever the requirements or the regulatory requirement that has been documented in the policies. Assurance process integration, we talked about it a little bit earlier. That is also called convergence, right? As I told you, information security cannot operate in a silo environment. It has to has integration with all the other offices, all the other departments within the organization. It can be HR, it can be legal, it can be your IT function, it can be your internal and external auditors, it can be your privacy officers, it can be your finance department. Anything within your organization that comes under the scope of information security should be integrated with your information security function. Roles and responsibilities, it's very important. Roles and responsibilities, everyone should be know what their job function is, what their label is, and what they are responsible, accountable for. Right? RACI chart, RACI is a tool, responsible, accountable, consulted, or informed. It helps you determine who has to do what, right? So you, in your organization, you might have seen every function or every project has some RACI kind of tool that is used to provide more and more information of who would be doing what, who would be responsible for the task, who would be accountable for the task, who needs to be consulted, and who needs to be informed. And it will look like something like this. Skill is something, skill is your expertise, right? You to perform your uh, job functions, you need some kind of skills, you need some kind of talent, uh, technical talent that is required to perform the job function is called a skill. And what is a culture? Culture is something that your organization has, what kind of behavior people has, your organizational behavior, right? How your organization structure influences your top down behavior of the. Yes, I can go back to the RACI. So RACI chart is something you might have seen in your organizations, right? Or if you have seen in the project management also, you should define something like RACI chart. Who is going to perform what? So you divide the functions, you divide the job task into as many as you want to do depending upon the requirement, and you define who is accountable for it, who would be responsible for it. For example, you are designing the information security policy, right? Now in information security, who would be accountable? Your accountable would be board of directors. Who would be responsible? Your chief information security officer would be responsible. Who needs to be consulted? Now everyone needs to be consulted. It can be your chief information security officer, it can be your chief technical officer, it can be your chief financial officer, it can be your anyone from the physical security side, right? Anyone can give, a lot of people can be consulted. And who needs to be informed regarding information security policy? Everyone needs to be informed, right? Board of directors, I told you what board of directors are. They're at the top level. Senior management is mostly comprises of your vice presidents, your CXOs, right? Business process owner. Who is the business process owner? Any kind of business process that is being run by a specific department, for example, finance department, right? So the head of the finance department will be the business process owner. Head of the HR would be the business process owner. Head of the technology would be the business process owner, right? These are some of the key roles you should know and you should remember. Governing board and senior management, we have talked about it. Chief risk officer, chief information officer, CISO. Some organization has all these functions that are mature organizations, big organizations. Small organizations don't have such so much of key roles within the organization. The organization structure varies from organization to organization. Chief Information Security Officer, ISM, that is your Information Security Manager, System and Information Owners, Business Functional Managers, IT. CRO is actually a Chief Risk Officer. Their role is to take care of the enterprise risk management. So it's a completely dedicated risk function. They are not, they don't not, they are not only focusing on the information security risk, they are also focusing at the enterprise wide risks. Some organization has this function, some organizations don't have this function. Obtaining senior management commitment, that is very important in running information security governance and information security program, right? If you don't have the clear approval or support from the management, you cannot drive the information security function. Ultimately they are accountable, they are responsible, senior management is responsible. We are introducing information security only from business perspective, right? We are helping business to meet some information security requirements. Monitoring and measuring organizational performance and implementing security policies. How you monitor it, right? You provide information to senior management, right? The information security, senior management is more concerned about how your information security is benefiting the organization as a whole. How you perform the metrics to the senior management. Senior management will help you or provide the support only when you provide appropriate metrics. How your information security program is performing, what would be the benefit that your business would be getting from the information security program, what are the severe issues that your organization is facing as a whole. If there is any additional, if there is any additional security investment that is required, in each and everything your senior management commitment is very important. Developing and presenting the business case. Now what is a business case? You might have heard about the business case. If I want to introduce something new in my organization, I, as a program manager or as a technology manager, I need to present the business case to the senior management, because senior management will provide the approval for the expenditure that will be involved in the security investment, right? Now, what you have to do, you have to develop a business case, right? Business case will involve all the project scope, what the current analysis has been done, what kind of tool you want to introduce, how your organization will get the benefit out of it, your cost benefit analysis, that is very important, that is part of your business case. Right. Each and everything, a formal review of the feasibility study report, if conducted, is conducted with all the stakeholders. Right. So business case will have sufficient detailed report that will provide a basis to the management why you need the technology or why you need a security investment. Establishing reporting and communication channels. Now, this is also very important. You need to have the reporting, what kind of reporting that needs to be done to the management, right? And what communication channels you follow. The presentation should be well mapped with prior presentations used to obtain support and security program commitment and can contain these of the following. Status of the implementation of system based on approved strategies. So what does this mean? This means that the management has provided you approval for the information security strategy that needs to be implemented. What is the overall status of the implementation? Right? Whether you have when you have conducted the BIA, that is the business impact analysis, right? What was the result of the business impact analysis, right? What are what are the statistics of the detected and prevented threats? For example, you detected some of the threats by doing the risk assessment or by doing the vulnerability assessment or the penetration testing, and how those threats were prevented or how those threats were mitigated, right? So you need to provide uh, reporting on each and everything to the management. So the management should know the current status of your information security processes that has been implemented within the organization, right? Identifying the weakest security links in the organization. This, how you identify the weakest security links in the organizations? By doing the risk assessment. For each and everything, you need to have a risk assessment in place that will help you identify the risk and help you mitigate all the risks in timely manner and bringing the risk down to the acceptable level. Performance measurement data analysis supported with independent external assessment or audit reports if available. Now we have discussed a little bit about the performance measurement, what kind of performance measurement is required, and what kind of performance measurement data analysis you need to provide to the senior management. Addressing ongoing alignment for critical business objectives. Now, how you determine the critical business objectives? By conducting the business impact analysis, operation processes and corporate environments, and requiring the approval for renewed plans as well as related budget items. Renewed plans means, and what are the related budget items? Any kind of plan that needs to be renewed. For example, you have to do the business impact analysis every time the new risk is introduced or some new business objective or business process is introduced, right? And the management will provide you the approval on the budget as well. So there are 4 groups requiring different communication. So you cannot provide the same communication to each and every person in the organization. Senior management will have a separate form of communication, right? They are more concerned with the high level metrics. They don't want to see all the technical metrics. So it is more of the qualified approach. It's not of a quantified approach. It's a qualitative metrics that you provide to senior management. Business process owners, they are the people who owns the process, and they are most bothered about their own area instead of having the visibility on the organization level metrics. Other management people can be anything. That can be, for example, your uh, project managers and normal employees that normally comes down at the bottom level of the hierarchy. Governance of third-party relationships. Now, third-party relationships or the supplier relationships, we also call it the supplier relationships or the vendor relationships, is very important because organizations outsource their business functions to third parties or vendors or suppliers, right? Every organization has relationship with third parties or their vendors or their suppliers who provide services to the organization. Now, how you deal with all these third-party relationships, uh, how you have the control of the information that they will have access to, right? That will come under your governance of third-party relationships. Every organization has the third-party relationship team who deal with the third parties, see what their requirements are, what kind of information they are accessing, right? And this goes through a proper channel of the global procurement as well. So you need to have third party governance of third party relationships in every organization. An important aspect of information security governance is the rules and processes employed when dealing with third party relationships. How you deal with third parties, right? What kind of contractual obligations you have with the third parties. And these third parties include your service providers, you outsourced operations, your trading partners, or merged your organizations are part of these parties. So let's take an example of third parties. You are outsourcing your background verification process to some organization. Now, what you will do? You will have a contract with them because they would deal with sensitive information, your employees' personal information, right? Now, in order to deal with such organizations, you need to have some contract in place with the with the supplier or vendor. Now uh, that contract will include all the necessary clauses, your information security requirements, if any regulatory requirement that also needs to be captured in the contract, so that third party is always aware what your company requirements are. If you don't mention it in the contract, they will never come to know about what are the mandatory requirement that you need to that you want them to comply with. So the responsibilities of information security manager to address the potential risk and possible impacts of third party relationship should be clear and documented in the master service agreement. Finally, there would be a formalized agreement model between the information security organization and these groups that establish and manage third party relationships of the organization, as I was explaining you before. So the metric should always be specific. It should be clearly understood. It should be clear and concise. Otherwise, management will not able to understand it. It should be measurable. If the metrics is not uh, if the metrics are not measurable, then there is no use of providing the metrics. It should be realistic based on important goals and values. It should be relevant to the process or to the business process or any kind of activity or goal that on what basis you are presenting the metrics. It should be timely. It should have specific time frame. For example, the metrics is for 1 year, metrics is for 6 months, the last metrics is for 1 month or quarterly basis, and so on. Additional considerations include accuracy is very important, cost effectiveness that is always provided to the management, repeatable, predictive, and actionable. So metrics help organization determine the performance of your processes, of your technology, about your resources that are in place within your organization. Without metrics, it is very difficult to understand what is the level of the performance your information security program is going through in the organization, or it can be any kind of technology or process within your organization that has been implemented. Effective security metrics. There are a lot of frameworks that has been designed for the useful metrics that can be taken from the ISO 27004 2009. It provides the information security manager measurement. COBIT 5 can also be used to that can also be used for the useful metrics. CIS provides some standards. It also provides lot of technical stuff that you can use as a standard. NIST 855, that is a performance measurement guide for information security that can help you design the metrics in many ways. So these are some of the standards that you can use for effective security metrics. I have used COBIT 5. I have used NIST. NIST will provide you a lot of information. If you, it's a free downloadable document you can download from the Google. You can just search the Google and it will provide you the link to the PDF, and you can download the performance measurement guide for information security from there. Strategic alignment metrics, it is something that is and it is something that has been showcased to the senior management. Right? What it includes: the extent to which the security program demonstrably enables specific business activities. Right? What does this mean? This means that the security program that you have implemented, how it has benefited to the business activities. Business activities that have not been undertaken or have been delayed because of inadequate capability to manage risk. So these are some of the indicators of alignment, the strategic alignment, and this should be showcased to the to your senior management as well. The percentage of security program activities mapped to organization objectives and validated by senior management. KGIs and KPIs include security activities that are designed to achieve specific strategic objectives in a cost-effective manner. So these are some of the indicators, right? These are some of the examples that I have documented here. The cost of security being proportional to the value of assets. What does this mean? What does this mean? This means how your processes are performing. What are the indicators that your goals are met? What are the indicators that will show how your processes are performing? That will come under your KPIs, right? Security resources that are allocated by degree of assessed risk and potential impact. So what does this mean? You have done the risk assessment. Sorry guys, this PPT doc is not shared. What does this mean? Security resources that are allocated by degree of assessed risk and potential impact. On the basis of risk assessment, you align some security resources in order to mitigate the identified risk. Protection costs that are aggregated as a function of revenues or asset valuation. Right? Controls that are well designed based on defined control objectives and that achieve those control objectives. We will come to your question later on. Control cost effectiveness that is determined by periodic testing. So there are a lot of things that we can discuss here, but due to time constraint, I cannot deep dive in each and everything. But I will try to explain it each and every topic from high level. Resource management metrics, indicators of effective resource management. We talked about what is resource management earlier, right? What kind of metrics you need to have in place. These are some of the metrics or examples that it should be, that are indicators of the resource management, right? Effective knowledge capture and dissemination, clearly defined roles and responsibilities. So these metrics are more qualitative in nature. These metrics are not quantitative in nature. Performance measurement. We talked about performance measurement earlier as well. What are the indicators of effective performance measurement? So for example, the time it takes to detect and report security related incidents is one of the indicator of effective performance measurement. How your incident related processes are performing, whether the incidents are detected on time, how much time it takes to detect the incidents, and how fast the incidents are reported, right? Once they are reported, obviously if they are reported on timely manner, it will be resolved in timely manner. The number and frequency of subsequently discovered unreported incidents. So there might be incidents that are unreported, right? So if it is high in number, obviously your process performance measurement will be low. If it is low in number, your your process performance measurement will be high. Assurance process integration, we have already spoken about it. What does assurance process integration means, and what is convergence? Your organization has a lot of functions, and to integrate all your functions with information security is called assurance process integration. Information security strategy overview. I have told you what is desired state. What you want to achieve from information security is called a desired state. Where you want to be in terms of information security down the line is called the desired state. So the objective of security strategy is a desired state defined by business and security attributes, right? And everything depends upon your business goals and objectives. So developing an information security strategy, these are some of the requirements that I have that has been showcased here. What all regulations can be there, what are requirements can be there, and what all standards that you can implement in order to develop an information security strategy. Common pitfalls. It is very common to see pitfalls in almost every organization, right? So these failures have root causes. Why the processes fail, why strategic plans fail in the organization. Overconfidence is one of the reasons. Sometimes the management feels they don't have to do anything with whether governance or program strategy comes first. I will come back to the questions later on. Why the program fails, right? Overconfidence is one of the reasons. Management normally thinks that information security is not important, or they can achieve the information security requirements very easily, right? So that is where overconfidence comes in picture. Over optimism is one of the reasons. Anchoring or marketing tactics just to ensure that we have information security program only to showcase the same to the market, and don't have the proper processes in place to achieve the information security, right? So these are some of the common pitfalls why strategic plans fails, and these should be taken care while designing the information security program and taking the commitment from the senior management. A number of other common causes also provided: confirmation bias, that is opinion and fact that supports one's own belief. So I don't think information security is important, right? You think information security is important. It's so everyone has their own opinion about the security, about the processes, about the technology, right? Selective recall, remembering only facts and experiences that reinforce current assumptions. So in any of the processes, technology is not based on assumptions. You need to have proper facts and experiences to implement the security processes, to implement proper technology within the organization. What is a goal and why it is important? To achieve some business objective is a goal. It is important from the business viewpoint, right? Defining business and requirements for information security is very important. Without business requirements, you cannot create the information security strategy. What are the business requirements? Business requirements can be anything in terms of your compliance requirements, your information security standards, your you need to implement the GDPR, right? You need to implement PCI DSS because you deal with payment data. Determining the objectives of information security that will satisfy the requirements, right? Locating and identifying information assets and resources. How you identify the information assets that needs to be protected, what level of protection you have to have in place to protect the information assets and resources. Classifying information assets as to criticality and sensitivity. Right? Normally, all the information assets cannot have the same level of protection. So unless and until you classify information assets, you cannot implement the controls. All information assets don't carry the same level of protection. Implementing a process to ensure that all assets have a defined owner. If any asset does not have a defined owner, it is difficult to ascertain the classification level of the asset, because as an information security manager, it is not your responsibility to classify information assets. You can help or you can facilitate, but you cannot classify the information asset. It's the information asset owner who will classify the information asset. Defining objectives. Objectives are always defined by the management. There can be long-term objectives to meet the desired state. There can be short-term objectives. All the objectives should come from the management. A review of the organization's strategic business plans is likely to uncover opportunities for information security activities that can be directly supportive of or enabling a particular avenue of business. So these strategic business plans are normally discussed with the management. Then the decision is taken what needs to be done and what doesn't need to, what they don't want to do it. How the objectives are linked to businesses. Every information security process should be linked to the business. Without a strategic objective, it is very difficult to do so. In determining strategic objectives, it is essential to ensure there are direct linkages to the specific business activities and goals. And how you achieve this linkages or mapping of the strategic objectives with business activities and goals, it would be your management who will help information security manager to do this mapping with business activities and goals. Desired state, as I told you earlier also, desired state is something where you want to reach. It's your destination point where you want your processes, technology, or the program to reach at certain point. How you can reach the desired state? You can use COBIT 5 tool. That is a framework that provides you to reach the desired state. COBIT can be used for the gap analysis. It provides you the gap between your current state and your desired state that will help you define the roadmap to reach the desired state. Process assessment model, that is also a tool that is used to assess the current state and define the future desired state for information security, as I was telling you earlier. Capability maturity model integration is a tool that you can use to gauge your processes for the maturity, right? It is also used for the gap analysis. So this is a high level presentation of the maturity levels. It has level 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If it is level 1, it means that your processes are very immature. They are very poorly documented, or they are not documented. Right? Level 2 is you have something in place, but you don't have everything in place. And you have some of the processes that are documented, some of the processes that are not documented, or are used at ad hoc level. Level 3 is something you have defined something, right? You have something in place, but it's not very maturely managed, right? You have processes in place, you have documented it properly, but those documents are not properly reviewed on regular basis, right? Those processes or documentations are not properly uh, managed from time to time. That is level 3. Level 4 is quantitatively managed. That means your processes are measured and controlled. And level 5 comes when you are focusing on process improvement from time to time. You already have very mature processes in place, and you focus on making make continuous improvements on the processes. To meet the desired process, you can also adopt some of the architectures like enterprise information security architecture. TOGAF is one of the enterprise level architecture. Zachman enterprise framework is one of the architecture. In CISM exam, these architectures are not being gauged in the exam, so you don't have to worry about it. About even the CSM review manual doesn't talks much about these enterprise frameworks. So these are only for information purpose. You need to know that what these framework mean and where these frameworks are used. Risk objectives. So I'm not taking it here. We will discuss in this in domain 2. Domain 2 talks about completely risk objective, risk assessment, and risk management. Right. Your business impact analysis, that is also part of your domain 2 risk management, but I will tell you what business impact analysis means. Business impact analysis is a process where you identify the critical business processes, so that will help you define the risk strategy, which areas are of more risk, which are of less risk, and you define the business continuity processes for on the basis of business impact analysis as well. Roadmap, as I told you earlier, what roadmap is, it's a step-by-step phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 to meet your desired state where you want to be after at a certain point of time. Roadmap is always based on long-term goal. Long-term goal can be your bigger projects that needs or bigger security initiatives. Short-term projects are aligned with the long-range objectives. What are the long-term goals, right? It is always aligned. The short-term projects are always aligned with long-term objectives, right? Or the bigger projects can be divided or split up into smaller projects so that it can meet the long-term goals. That will help you meet your roadmap as well. Corbett 5, we have touch based on it. Strategy, resources, and constraints. What are resources? For your information security program, your policy, standard, procedure, guidelines, countermeasures are controls, organization structure. These are the resources. Policies are the top level statements that has been provided by the senior management, board of directors, what your information security is, what are the requirements that are documented in the policies. Standards are always based on policies and are the mandatory documents. Procedures are based on standards. That's a step-by-step procedure to meet some standard. Guidelines are not the mandatory documents, right? So it only provides you information how what you can do, how you can do. Countermeasures are actually the controls that you will implement. Organization structure will provide you information what your organization structure looks like. Sorry. Constraints are there can be number of constraints when developing a security strategy and subsequent action plan. It can be legal, there can be legal requirements. These are also known as constraints, right? You need to consider the legal requirements when you are developing the security strategy. IT controls, there can be a number of controls that are implemented within your organization. IT controls are normally the IT controls that are implemented, for example, your patch management, change management, your organization level, or IT level, technology level controls. Those are IT controls. Non-IT controls are actually administrative controls, right? The administrative controls are the policies you design, the standards you design. What are countermeasures? What is the difference between the countermeasure and a control? Countermeasures are reactive, controls are proactive. Countermeasures are the protection measure that directly reduce a vulnerability or a threat. Countermeasures can simply be considered targeted controls. Layered defenses. What do you mean by layered defenses? Layered defenses means you have layer, right? For example, uh, you have administrative controls, you have technical controls, you have physical controls, right? Or you implement number of controls in order to protect your information. Like let's take an example of multi-factor authentication. So the first layer would be the first level of authentication. The second layer would be the second level of authentication. So these are just an example of the prevention controls. What are the containment? There are a number of technologies with security mechanisms that can play a critical role in the success of organization security strategy. These are some of the prevention controls: authentication, authorization, encryption, firewalls, physical security, intrusion prevention, awareness training. So I'm not going into I'm not going to deep dive into all these examples. Personal. What is personal? Any employee, any human being is called a personal, right? The biggest threat to organization are its own people. Why they are why they are most dangerous? Because because if you lack some controls, if you lack to provide the security awareness of the people, right? Insider threats are most dangerous. Background checks should be performed on all personnel. So background checks are performed in order to ensure that the personnel or employees that would be joining your organizations has the legitimate information that has been provided by them to the HR or the company, right? So you might have heard about the people who are carrying fake qualifications, fake experience certificates that they provide to the companies in order to get the job. So in order to ensure there is no fake information or there is no criminal records against the personal, background checks are performed. Methods of tracking incidents of theft should be developed. How you track if there is an incident, what you will do, right? Uh, how you will track the incidents, and these incidents should be investigated and tracked when feasible or whenever or whatever the case may be. Organizational structure is very important. It is a top down approach. It provides the information of the security strategy. It provides you information who is responsible for what, right? Who is the CIO, who is the CTO, who is the finance owner, who is the HR owner, who is the owner for the physical security. So all these information you will get from the organization structure. There can be centralized and decentralized approaches to coordinating information security. Centralized means you have a centralized information security team for the complete organization. Decentralized means every location has their own information security team. Right, organization structure, we have already spoken about it. Employee roles and responsibilities, that is very important and it should be communicated to employee. It can be HR who communicates the roles and responsibilities. It can be employee supervisor who can communicate the roles and responsibilities, or it can be information security manager also who can work with the director level people or the senior management employees and can draft the employees roles and responsibilities, which can be later communicated to them when they are assigned the job function. Skills inventory is something that normally every company maintains or every organization maintains. So it is a list of all the people. No, yes, threat cannot be completely controlled. There is no 100% security, right? There is always a residual risk. Skills are equally important. Organizations keep track of all the skills inventory. They have the list of people who have who has what kind of skills, who has what kind of certification, that will make them that is helpful in determining what is required and what is not required in terms of resources. Awareness and education, that is very important. Every employee should have awareness and education for the information security program. Every organization has their own information security training that is provided to all the employees, contractors, third parties, and that is an annual exercise that normally our organization does. Audits, every organization has audits. Internal audit function, normally I have seen in all the bigger organizations, has the internal audit function. They do internal audits to ensure the effectiveness of the controls, right? External audits happens normally once a year, and there is no biased or biased on the audit side. That is why external audit happens. So external audit, some third party auditor would be coming to your organization, and they would be doing the independent audit. It will help organization identify the weak areas or the areas that needs more attention, and that is always done on the base of the risk-based approach. Compliance enforcement is always done from the top level, so senior management should pay more attention to the compliance enforcement, right? The most effective approach to compliance is an organization where openness and trust are valued and promoted by management, right? So compliance, as I had discussed when we started with this domain, that how we take care of the compliance and why compliance is important, and it should always be forced from the top management. Threat assessment, we will talk about this in the second domain. Threat assessment is performed as overall the risk assessment. It is important element, right? From the threat assessment, you will jot down all the risk scenarios. On the basis of risk scenarios, you will do the risk analysis. You will identify the likelihood and impact of the threats, and on the basis of threats, you will have the outcome of the unacceptable level and acceptable levels of risk, and then you will decide the risk treatment. Vulnerability assessment is normally vulnerability assessment is done in organizations to identify the vulnerabilities in the technologies, right? So this helps you identify what kind of vulnerabilities are there in the environment, and you can mitigate the same in timely manner. Risk assessment and management, we will talk about it in when we will do the domain 2 tomorrow. Insurance, why you do the insurance? To transfer the risk, you do the insurance, right? There can be three types of insurances. First party insurance covers the organization in the event of damage. Now this damage can be through the natural disasters, or it can be due to man-made disasters. Third-party insurance deals with potential liability to third parties and generally includes defense against lawsuits, covers damage up to predetermined limits. So, for example, if there is any non-compliance with the regulatory requirement and your company has to bear some penalties or losses, that can be covered under third-party insurance. And fidelity insurance or bonding involves protection against employees or agent theft or embezzlement. That is also that is a third type of insurance that the organizations have for the employees or the theft or embezzlement cases. Business impact analysis, I've already given the overview on the business impact analysis. What business impact analysis is, we will talk more about business impact analysis in domain 2. Resource dependency analysis, this is normally covered in disaster recovery plans, and you do the resource dependency. Resource dependency means what this can be technical dependency, this can be your personal dependency, right? So what resource dependency means? Report dependency can provide another perspective on the criticality of information resources, right? So for example, you have a critical business process running, right? And you have some kind of dependency on the technical architecture or some kind of dependency on the resources that you have in place to run that business objective or business process. Outsource services, we have spoken about it to some extent. Outsourcing is common both onshore and offshore as companies focus on core competencies and way to cut costs. Right? Normally, most of the organizations outsource one or the other function as the business feels comfortable. Okay. Strategy constraints. We talked about constraints, legal and regulatory requirements that are very important to know. If you haven't, if your information security program does not have the legal and regulatory requirement documented, obviously, then there will be a failure in order to meet the legal and regulatory compliances. From the perspective of a very important point, from the perspective of the information security manager, regulatory compliance should be treated as any other risk, and the extent of compliance is ultimately a business decision, right? Business, we as an information security manager is doing everything for the business, right? So we don't own the business. Business is always owned by the business people, and we are not the drivers, right? Business people are the drivers. So every decision has to be taken by the business. We can highlight the risk, whether it has to be mitigated or not has to be mitigated, it's business call, it's not our call. Physical and environmental factors that may influence or constrain and information security are also important, right? You should know what kind of physical and environmental threats you have for the location, right? The strategy must include a requirement of consideration for person and resource safety. That is, normally you might have seen the fire drills that happens in your organization. They also demonstrate how to take care of the personal security and resource safety. And human life is the most important that needs to be saved. That is the first thing all the organizations consider. Ethics and culture, we have talked about it. Organizational structure and cost. Organization structure, we have caused about it. Cost, we have discussed to some extent. Personal and resources, we have spoken. What are capabilities? Risk acceptance and tolerance, we have already discussed about to some extent. We will talk about risk acceptance and tolerance in the tomorrow session. Gap analysis is something that uh, gap is something that you know when you do the gap analysis from between the current state and the desired state, right? So that whatever you have in place currently is the current state, and where you want to be after some point of time, that is your desired state. Desired state is also always um, based on your information security requirements. Okay. Policy development. So once you have this information security strategy in place, you have so what is your next step? You do the policy development. Your security policies are well defined information security strategy and capture the intent, expectation, and direction of the management. So it has, policies are always high level. They provide you the what is the intent, what is the expectations or direction of the management, what all regulatory requirements are there, what all security requirements are there. All these things are documented in the policies. Each policy should state only one general security mandate. So this is not a mandatory thing, right? If we talk about information security policies, it has normally all the security requirements jotted within the same policy. So if the policy is department specific or a process specific, then it should have only one general security mandate or any of the security requirement that is mandatory for that particular area. Policies must be clear and easily understood by all affected parties. All affected parties can be all the people, right? All the people, all employees, your senior management, your board of directors, your stakeholders, internal, external, everyone. Policy should rarely be more than a few sentences long. It should be short, precise, concise, right? There should rarely be a reason to have more than 2 dozen policies. 2 dozen policies means you should not have so much of policies that people should not pay attention to it. Keep it short, keep it less, so at least people should. So these are some of the consideration of the for the action plan metrics, right? General metrics considerations. This include progress according to plan and budget. Just in the same manner it happens for the any project management. Whether your plan is accordingly that was documented or approved by the management, whether your plan is under budget, significant changes in risk and possible impacts to business objectives, if any, results of the disaster recovery testing, audit results. So these are some of the considerations. This does not mean that this is a comprehensive list or an exhaustive list. So these are some of the considerations of the metrics. Okay, action plan intermediate goals, we have spoken about it. Information security program objectives. As I told you earlier, our information security program objectives are always aligned with your business objectives. Right? For most organizations, the security objective is met when information is available and usable when required. So it talks about availability, confidentiality, and integrity. So these are the basic elements of the information security program. So any of your information security program must be aligned with your CIA, that is confidentiality, integrity, and availability. Confidentiality means you might have heard about the confidentiality. It means the person who is authorized to access the information should have access to it, and the information should not be disclosed to any unauthorized people. That is confidentiality, right? So for example, let's take the example of internet banking. You log into the internet banking, right? You access your information because you are authorized to do it. Nobody else cannot do it. That is confidentiality. You are able to access your internet banking whenever you want to use, right? That is availability. And integrity means the unauthorized people uh, should not modify the information, except the authorized people should have access to modify the information. That is integrity.